Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we are taking a fascinating and I think intensely practical detour. We're looking at some of the oldest surviving, well, management and self-help literature on the planet.
That's a great way to put it.
I mean, we're talking about sources that, even though they're ancient, feel like they were written for today's problems. Things like reputation management, work efficiency.
Exactly. Our sources today are focused on a collection of Proverbs from Ecclesiastes Chapter 10. It's written by a figure called the Teacher. And yes, it's philosophical, but its real power is in its aggressive pragmatism. The Teacher doesn't just talk about wisdom and folly as, abstract ideas. He uses these vivid, unforgettable analogies to illustrate universal truths.
And they really are unforgettable analogies. I mean, dead flies in perfume, dull axes, houses that are literally falling apart because people are too lazy to fix a leak. They're just these immediate visual cues for massive life lessons.
So that's really our mission for this deep dive. We're going to unpack these memorable nuggets for you. We'll look at the huge, disproportionate consequences of small, foolish actions.
Okay.
We'll examine why investing in skill always beats raw effort, and we'll explore the surprising power of discretion, especially now in the noise of the digital age.
This is basically your shortcut to better decision-making, using guidance that has what stood the test of millennia. Okay, so let's jump right in with the one that gives this whole discussion its dramatic flair. The dead fly principle. The sources are brutally clear on this. As dead flies give perfume a bad smell, so a little folly outweighs wisdom and honor.
Yeah, and what's essential to grasp here is just the sheer magnitude of that metaphor. Think about perfume in the ancient world. This wasn't, cheap body spray. It was a complex, expensive, highly valued commodity. It was often for royalty, for temples. It represented status, care, a huge investment.
So you spent a lifetime building that up, accumulating wisdom, building a reputation. You're creating that costly fragrance of honor.
Precisely. And then what happens?
One tiny, insignificant contaminant, a single dead fly, and it ruins the whole thing. It's that disproportionate destruction that it makes the concept so powerful.
It speaks directly to the fragility of trust
and
reputation. You could have 10 years of just stellar integrity, reliability, diligence.
Right.
But one single foolish momentary lapse, let's say an act of dishonesty on an expense report or a private email you thought was deleted, it just introduces this corrosive element into the perfume.
And the reputation is suddenly judged not by the volume of wisdom, but by that one tiny contamination of folly.
That's the key. We often think of wisdom and honor as a reservoir, like you can just fill it up. But here it's presented as a really sensitive compound. The folly acts like an acid.
I see people struggle with this all the time. They think, it was such a small lie, why did it cost me everything?
Because the damage isn't proportional to the size of the mistake. It's proportional to the value of what was corrupted. The trust. And the text suggests this is rooted deep in character. It says wisdom and folly are directional. The wise person's heart is oriented toward the right, towards sound judgment. And the fool's heart is oriented to the left, towards impulsiveness.
So if your default setting, your heart's inclination, is even slightly off, that's going to show up. It'll be revealed in all the small things you do every single day.
Exactly. It's not just about the one big scandalous choice. The source emphasizes that even, quote, as the fool walks along the road, his sense is wanting, and he tells everyone that he's a fool.
Wow. So your character is it's on display in your poor posture, unwise comments, impulsive reactions, not just in grand failures.
And that's the practical lesson. You have to guard your integrity in the small things, because those tiny choices, they expose the directional default of your heart, and they can totally undermine years of honor you've worked to build.
Okay, so we've established that character is crucial, but character without competence is just exhausting. Which brings us neatly to the next big principle. The dull axe. The sources state, if the axe is dull and its edge unsharpened, more strength is needed, but skill will bring success.
This is one of the most brilliant pieces of, ancient industrial advice you could find. It is the definitive case for working smarter, not just harder.
Right.
If your tool, and that could be a literal axe, or your knowledge, your technical skill, your software, if it's dull, you compensate with brute force effort. You just swing harder.
And you burn out. Why do you think people do that, though? Why do we default to brute strength when we face resistance instead of just taking the time to sharpen the axe?
I think it's often impatience and, well, a misunderstanding of leverage. Sharpening the axe, investing in new training, developing a better process, it takes time away from doing.
Yeah.
But that prep time multiplies your effectiveness
Time.
exponentially. The person swinging the sharp axe cuts 10 trees in the time the brute force worker, cuts 2 and probably injures himself.
So success comes from preparation and precision, not just raw effort.
And the contrast is drawn with the sheer inefficiency of the fool's work, which the text says wearies him. And the reason is he doesn't even know the way to town.
It's the ultimate indictment of inefficiency born from ignorance.
It is. The fool expends tremendous energy on simple tasks because they lack the most basic wisdom, the most basic understanding of methods. They are trying to solve complex problems with, well, completely inadequate tools. They confuse activity with productivity.
So if you're feeling perpetually exhausted by your work, the first question shouldn't be, am I working hard enough?
No.
It should be, is my axe sharp, and do I even know the way to town?
Precisely. And the teacher adds a critical third element to competence, which is timing. He uses the proverb of the snake charmer. If a snake bites before it's charmed, there's no benefit for the charmer.
That is fantastic. So you can have the skill, you can have the preparation, but if your timing is off, if you act too soon and get bitten,
all that knowledge and effort is wasted. Or worse, it results in disaster. Wisdom isn't just knowing what to do, it's understanding the precise moment to apply that skill.
Now we're going to shift a bit from personal competence to navigating external dynamics, specifically relationships with authority figures. The sources advise us on handling anger. If a ruler's anger rises against you, do not abandon your post.
This is such profound advice on diffusing conflict, on maintaining composure under pressure. To not leave your post means resisting that fight-or-flight impulse. Staying calm when facing anger is wise because, as the text says, calmness can lay great errors to rest. A measured response it diffuses a tense situation far better than a reactionary outburst or an impulsive resignation.
But I have to ask, doesn't that advice, staying silent and calm when authority is angry, doesn't that risk promoting a kind of compliance? When maybe what's needed is to speak truth to power.
That's a critical question, and I don't think the text is endorsing blind compliance. It's endorsing strategic calmness. Calmness gives you clarity. It allows you to choose how and when you speak. Abandoning your post, that's emotional surrender. Staying calm lets you assess the error, whether it's yours or the ruler's, and then respond rationally. You prevent the situation from escalating into, an unrecoverable disaster.
And that clarity is what allows you to handle the larger problem the teacher brings up, which he calls a significant, evil, incompetent leadership.
Absolutely. The source defines this societal evil as a reversal of the natural order. Fools are put in high positions while capable people are stuck in low ones.
Or when those who should be serving are elevated while those who should be leading are diminished. It's organizational incompetence, really, driven by a poor meritocracy.
And the effects are immediate and severe. Woe to the land whose king was immature or unqualified and whose leaders are feasting excessively in the morning.
Right, the leader's character sets the tone for the whole nation, the whole organization.
Exactly. Leaders who prioritize self-indulgence, feasting for drunkenness over preparation and responsibility, they damage everyone. The text is clear. The well-being of the whole system is tied directly to the character of those at the top.
Let's circle back to communication for a second, because how people speak is a huge theme here. We're warned against multiplying words unnecessarily.
The contrast is so stark. Wise words are gracious, they're beneficial, they're clear. The fool, however, is consumed by their own lips. They start with foolishness, they just keep multiplying words and often end in, destructive madness. They just speak without knowing the future they're speaking into, filling the void with noise.
The practical application here is just vital. Think before you speak. Let your words be constructive, and recognize that the more words you use, the greater your chances of stumbling.
So if the dull axe was about skill development, this final section on diligence is really about skill maintenance. The sources use another fantastic household analogy to warn against laziness. If hands are idle, the house leaks.
That analogy is just brutally simple. Laziness doesn't just result in stagnation, it results in active deterioration, collapse. It's not just about building something new. Diligence is required for constant maintenance.
That is the key distinction. And why is the maintenance analogy so much harder for people to embrace than, say, the building analogy? I think it's because maintenance lacks the excitement of creation.
That's true.
Yet, small neglects, a leaky faucet, an unattended relationship, a missed doctor's appointment, they don't stay small. They inevitably lead to massive, costly problems over time.
This feeds right into the principle that actions have consequences. The warning about whoever digs a pit may fall into it, and whoever breaks through a wall may be bitten by a snake.
Wisdom requires foresight. It just does. If you engage in risky, destructive, or careless behavior like digging a trap for someone else, you are the most likely person to suffer the blowback. The snake in the wall wasn't invited, it was exposed by the careless act of breaking through.
And foresight leads us directly to discretion, which is maybe the most shockingly modern piece of advice in the entire chapter. The warning. Don't revile the king even in your thoughts, or curse the rich in your bedroom, because a bird of the air will carry your words.
Just think about the weight of that warning for a moment. This text is saying that even your most private thoughts, spoken in what you think is the safest space imaginable, your bedroom, might still be reported.
That was a metaphor for gossip and servants thousands of years ago.
It was. And today, that bird of the air is Gmail. It's Slack, iMessage, every microphone connected to a smart device. The need for discretion is absolute.
You have to assume anything you write, speak, or record, even in a private chat, it could become public. Careless words bring immediate, permanent trouble.
It forces us to slow down, to align our private thoughts with our public reputation, precisely because the line between the two has completely dissolved.
Finally, the teacher grounds all of this wisdom in one, well, undeniable practical reality. After discussing all this, he says, money is the answer for everything.
This is such a crucial grounding statement. And it's not an endorsement of materialism, it's a recognition of money's practical utility. A feast is made for laughter, wine makes life merry, and money facilitates these things.
So in a practical world, money solves immediate problems.
Yeah.
It meets needs. The wisdom isn't avoiding money, it's being a good steward of it, recognizing its essential place without making it the ultimate goal. What a compelling deep dive. This is such practical, life-altering wisdom. These sources really provide a template for navigating reputation, competence, and just personal conduct.
The central theme is so clear. Success is not achieved through brute effort or carelessness. It's through the continuous maintenance of character, the sharpening of skill, and strategic discretion.
And that concept of the dead fly is the anchor. Today, the cost of that small indiscretion is higher than ever because digital magnification makes that single dead fly permanent and visible and instantly accessible to everyone.
Right. The wisdom here just calls us to diligence, to thoughtfulness and preparation. It pushes back against the culture of impulsiveness. The ancient message remains critical. Minor mistakes can devastate major accomplishments.
So we'll leave you with this final provocative thought for the week. Considering how visible and permanent our actions are today, what seemingly minor dead fly choice, whether it's an unsharpened skill, a careless word, or an act of neglect, do you need to address immediately to protect the wisdom and honor you have worked so hard to attain?
A great question to reflect on.
Think about that, and on that note, we encourage you to continue exploring, learning, and diving deep into stories that inspire and challenge you. Until next time.